welcome back. On today's episode, we are going to be wallpapering the dining room. Now, actually, this room is like an extension off of the kitchen, and this is where we eat every day. So it's kind of like an eating kitchen because our big antique, beautiful dining room table and chair set is actually in our living room because our living room is huge. So one side has our big dining table and chairs, and the other side has a seating area. But this is the room that we use most of the time, and then we use our big dining room table for like all of our holiday parties when all of the family comes. But this is the wallpaper that I'm going to be using on the walls. This is from Kelly Clarkston, and I purchased this on Wayfair, and I got it on sale, and I got it for a really, really good price. Now it has bunnies and horses and deer and trees and all kinds of things, and I just thought it was absolutely beautiful. And I also thought that the color would really complement the colors that I used in the kitchen and in the sunroom. And today's the day to start papering. I've already got the walls prepped, and I'll show you a little bit of that video footage of how I did that. I started out caulking around the crown molding. Then I needed to clear everything out of my china hutch. We inherited this from Rick's mother. It's solid maple and a really nice piece. We took off the chair rail. This piece was not easy to get off. They used really large nails. Next, I took down the 1990s curtain rod. This switch plate cover has wallpaper on it. I suspected they painted over the paper with the sponge painting, and when I took off the cover, I knew that they had. This house had plaster walls originally, and at some point they put drywall up over top of the plaster. However, they didn't take the trim off first in the dining room, so you can see how it looks really sunken in. Now here's the trim in the living room, and they did take the trim off before they put the drywall up and then put the trim back. Now I needed to sand down all of the rough spots on the walls before painting. I decided not to remove the old wallpaper because it was in good shape, and I figured that I could wallpaper and paint right over it. Now I am marking the walls where my wallpaper is going to end. I decided to stain kill the walls to help even out the textured sponge painting, and also it would look better to have the white walls behind the wallpaper. Now with stain kill, I can wallpaper the next day. However, if these walls had been freshly painted, you would need to wait at least 30 days before putting up your wallpaper. I decided to paint the crown molding first before putting up the wallpaper. When wallpapering, I typically start behind a door, like if I'm in a bathroom or something, because once you start with your first piece and you wrap it all the way around, your pattern isn't going to line up when you have your last two seams come together. And so if you do it behind the door, up at the top, you really won't be able to tell. However, in this dining room, I don't have a doorway to do that with because all my doorways are open. So I'm going to start with this wall here because I don't want to have to cut this edge. I want to put the nice clean edge right on this. I'm hoping that it's level and that I can do that. So I'm going to check it right now, and hopefully this wall is level. So my first piece can just run right along the edge, and it is. So I really lucked out there. I'm cutting an X in the paper so that I can slip this piece over top of the doorbell up on the wall. Now this paper is not pre-pasted nor is it peel and stick, so I needed to use some wallpaper glue in order to hang this paper. You really want to put this glue on very generously. You want to have it completely covered in all areas. And then when you're done gluing, you fold it in half, and this is called booking, and you wait 10 minutes before you hang it. I decided to add some additional glue just around the edges of this wall. I realized that when this paper was wet, I couldn't cut it with an X-Acto knife. It was just ripping the paper. So I ended up using scissors, and I could cut the paper well with the scissors. I needed to wipe down the table after each use to get all of the excess glue off and then dry it really well, so I didn't get glue on the front of my next piece. Next, I am just cutting the extra wallpaper off with a pair of scissors. I want to share a problem with you that I just ran into, and I can honestly say in all the years that I've been papering, I did my first wallpaper job in my 20s, I'm in my 60s now, I have never run into this problem, at least not to this degree. The walls are very, very off, and every time I try to go around a corner, I can get the top lined up perfectly to go around the corner, but the bottom is way off. I mean, there's like big gaps in the paper. Now on the first corner I did over by the doorbell, I just had to cut a little piece at the very top and overlap it, and it was fine. I could not do it on this wall. It's off by like a couple of inches. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I gonna do? What I ended up doing is taking my pencil and drawing a very, very faint line, and I pulled it off the wall partially, and I took a pair of scissors and I just cut up the line. And I'm sorry to say that it's jagged and the paper tore in a couple of places because it's wet, and it's really hard to work with when it's wet. And I thought, okay, I'm not sure how I'm going to fix this, but I need to just get this piece here to lay flat, and I'll figure out what to do about this piece later. I wanted to line up the bottom first because that's where you visually are going to see the most, is like the bottom part of it. So I got the bottom part to line up, and when I got to the top, the bottom, the seams hit just like they should. When I got to the top, I had to overlap the top by, I don't even know what, at least an inch, maybe more, I don't know. And I'm like, man, this is just not going to turn out well. But believe it or not, when you step back and look at it, you can't even tell. I mean, it absolutely looks like that the pattern is just one continuous flowing pattern, and you can't even tell that I cut and pieced it at all. So another rule of thumb when wallpapering, you can make mistakes and you can correct them as best you can, and you'll know where they are, but no one else is ever going to see them. Here you can see how off the animals are at the top, but the further down you go, the more the animals start to line up in the correct way. And here is one of the little rips. However, after it dried, you couldn't even see it. It's the next day. Now, my very last piece of wallpaper that I did yesterday, oh my gosh, it did not turn out well at all. So visually, when you stand back and look at the wall, it looks as though the pattern is a perfect repeat around the corner, even though it's not. So I really lucked out. So my next piece, I'm going to be off an inch, from the ceiling down to the bottom. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to line it up at the top, and as I come down, I'm going to slightly overlap it. And then with each piece I do after that, I will slightly overlap until I get it completely straight again. Such is the joys of trying to wallpaper in an old home. I wrapped my roller in plastic overnight so I could use it again the next day. I'm really happy with the quality of this paper. I actually prefer to work with traditional wallpaper versus peel and stick. It's much easier to position, plus I like the finish better as well. Peel and stick has a tendency to look somewhat plastic. Wallpaper is an investment. It can be pricey to do an entire room, so I always look for wallpaper that's on sale. I was actually able to slide the paper under the mini split, which really worked out well because it gave it a nice, clean, finished look. I'm cutting the paper out around this screw so that it won't buckle when it dries. I'm checking my paper to make sure that it's still level. Now with this, I'm taking a pencil and I'm just marking around the edges of this while the paper is dry before I put the glue on. This way I'm sure to get a nice clean edge. And I'm also adding some additional glue around this doorway as well. And the next day I came in and I trimmed off all of the wallpaper around the trim. And since it was completely dry, it came off beautifully. And here is all of the waste from the project. When you have to cut around 3 doorways and a window in one room, you're going to have a lot of waste because you're trying to keep your pattern lined up. So I always recommend that you buy 2 extra rolls of wallpaper. One, because you're always going to need one more than you think you're going to. And number 2, if you make any mistakes and have to cut another piece, you may need to use another roll. During the pandemic, when everyone was staying at home, one of the first projects I did was the back of this china hutch. It has a really dark background and you really couldn't see the dishes and things that I had displayed in here. So I just took some scrap contact paper. It was kind of like shelf liner that I had left over from lining shelves from years ago, and I had just enough and I pieced it together and I put it in here, and it really made a difference. However, now it doesn't really match with the wallpaper in my dining room. So luckily I have a lot of scrap wallpaper left, and I'm going to use some of that to go over top of this with the paper that'll match the walls, and I think it'll look really nice. I think this turned out beautifully, and I'm really glad that I decided to put the wallpaper on the back of the china hutch that matches the walls. Wouldn't you know it, there was a seam right down the middle of this switch plate cover that I wanted to cover with wallpaper. However, I used some painter's tape to hold the two pieces together, and what I did is I took my fingers and went over the tape several times to make it less sticky so I could easily peel it off of the paper when I was done. And then I very carefully peeled the painter's tape off. I actually had two switch plate covers to do in the room, and this one also I had a seam right at the very edge, but I was still able to have enough paper to make it work. Next, I needed to clean all of my molding to get any excess wallpaper glue off of it before I started painting. I took off these old corded blinds, and they were purchased in the 1990s, 1993. Rick decided to put in a nice new white electrical outlet because the other one was cream and it really did not look well with the white trim. I also took this little wooden knob and spray painted it white. And I also put a fresh coat of paint on the cover of the doorbell. This is our 100-year-old sycamore tree in our backyard, and it is beautiful, majestic, and glorious.
I painted all the trim white around the windows and all of the doorways as well. I painted the radiator cover to freshen it up. And the baseboards as well. And then I added a couple of coats of white paint to the bottom of the walls below the wallpaper. Rick made these 2 custom pieces of wood to go in the dining room. We were missing these 2 pieces of trim above the window and the doorway into the living room. Now some of this chair rail was oak and some of it was pine from the previous owners. I used some wood filler and then sanded it all down because they used such large nails before I painted this trim. All of the smaller pieces were new that we bought in pine and trimmed them because some of these pieces were missing. They weren't on the wall at all. Next, I decided to clean the chandelier, so I very carefully unscrewed the bulbs and took down all of the glass globes. And I very carefully cleaned the base of the chandelier and all of the beautiful prisms. And then I washed all of the globes in some warm soapy water and they came out sparkling clean. And here is the beautiful chandelier. I think the textured ceilings get a bad rap because I think the ceiling is beautiful and they also add sparkles to the paint, which I absolutely love.
Okay, so it shouldn't go anywhere.
Stayed.
This is the existing trim on the top of the doorway going from the kitchen into the sunroom. We added the new trim to the doorway going into the living room and the trim above the window. We had to use some shims on the trim above the window because the walls were so off. Then I caulked all of the trim. I also caulked the trim in all of the corners too around the chair rail. We took some time to go camping, and my mother came with us as well as our Emmy Lou. And also our children and our grandchildren came as well. And we had a lovely day at the beach. And this is in Caseville, Michigan, and this is the Great Lakes of Lake Huron. and I loved the cloud formations in this video. And at the end of each day, we had a bonfire with s'mores, and it was perfect.
I want to talk a little bit about this rug. I took a chance on this rug. I saw it on Wayfair and I loved it. I thought the colors would look great in the dining room, and it also picks up some of the lighter sage green that's in the kitchen and the sunroom, which is off of this room. The problem was there was only one photo of this rug and 0 reviews. And I'm like, oh man, I don't know what this rug is going to look like once I get it. However, I couldn't have been more pleased. It looks perfect in this space, and I'm so glad that I chose it.
I took down the temporary window coverings. And here are my beautiful new curtains. I ordered these on Wayfair. And they have beautiful Battenberg lace at the bottom, and they're so dainty and pretty. Next, I decided to paint this mirror. This mirror I had hanging in the craft room in our previous home. However, this was done in a dark cream color, and it really didn't look good against all of the white in our new dining room. So I took some metallic gold craft paint and I put a couple of coats of gold paint on it. Then I used a little bit of rub and buff to just highlight the raised edges. And this is the finished look. It turned out beautifully.
I went to an estate sale over the weekend, and it was a 2-story home, and every single room was filled with antiques. I mean, top to bottom. I would have loved to have filmed some of it, but honestly, there was so many people there. There was no way that I could really film without getting people in the video, so I chose not to. But I picked up 3 things, and I want to show you what I got. The first one is this adorable enamel candlestick holder, and this is going to go in the dining room because I have a few other antique enamel pieces that'll look really nice with this. This was $5. I thought it was super cute. And then I purchased this adorable little angel, and she is, I am guessing, from around the 1950s. She's perfect in every way, and she was only $3, and she's going to go in my china cabinet. Now the third thing I got is this beautiful antique print, and it's not a painting, but it's a print, but it's very, very old, and I have to be really careful because this thing needs some work. Let me turn it around and I'll show you. There's a little sticker on the back down at the bottom that says the lake house, but you can see how old this is. The paper's disintegrating, so I need to do some work on this before I can hang it up. However, I don't think this is going to go in the dining room. I think this is going to go in a future project, which will be the downstairs bathroom. But I just, oh, and this was $10, so I thought that was a great price. It actually looks very beautiful in person, so I just wanted to show you some of my cool finds.
I purchased all 3 of these pieces of art on Amazon, and I thought that they looked really nice in this room, and I really love the detail of the large painting. When we were in Paris 2 years ago, I bought this postcard of Marie Antoinette when we were in the Palace of Versailles, and I really thought that it would look nice in this room.
Rick and I would like to thank you so much for watching today's video and for following along with us on our thoughtful renovation of our 1927 vintage bungalow. I think the next room I'm going to do is the bathroom on the main floor. So if you haven't already subscribed, please consider doing so you can watch that renovation as well. Rick and I love you guys and thank you for watching, and we'll see you all soon. Goodbye.